Well, my name's Quint Studer, and I'm lucky enough to host the Gratitude Symposium for the month of May, and thank you for joining us. This is a talk by Vincent Brown. Vincent R. Brown is a friend of mine. Many of the people that are at the Gratitude Symposium are people I've worked with over the years. I'm on a board in Cincinnati, and Vincent has been very active in that board, helping us with diversity and inclusion. And after seeing his work there, I asked him if he wouldn't mind being part of the Gratitude Symposium. And of course, if you know Vincent Brown, he immediately said yes if he thought he could help people. His expertise includes diversity, inclusion, organizational and team development, executive coaching, creating and sustaining change. He's co-authored the best-selling book with Janet Butler-Reed that really helped shape the thinking of modern corporate culture about diversity and inclusion, entitled The Phoenix Principles, Leveraging Inclusion to Transform Your Company. There's a second book coming out called Intrinsic Inclusion, TM, Rebooting Your Biased Brain. Like I say, we use Vincent Brown, my own company does, and I'm so excited that he's agreed to share his knowledge with you. So join me in welcoming Vincent R. Brown, the president of V. Randolph Brown Consulting.
Hello, my name is Vince Brown, and I am so excited to be part of this Gratitude Symposium. Let me first thank Quint Studer for his vision to have such a wonderful subject for conversation. I think in this day and age, it's absolutely critical. We've been involved in so many different challenges recently as people across this country and around the world. Having a conversation about gratitude, I think, is incredibly important and very thoughtful. So it is my pleasure to be able to speak with you. And I'd like to think about this as if it was a one-on-one conversation between the two of us. I want to approach gratitude in a slightly different way because I know you're going to be getting a lot of amazing information on gratitude. I want you to think about it as it relates to building gratitude with people who might not be like yourself. So you're going to hear me talk a lot about that as the context and the construct for my conversation with you. And in that, I want to introduce 3 ways that we can show gratitude with people who are different than us that really optimizes and maximizes the impact of gratitude. So I just want to thank you for you allowing me your time. And I know you had a choice in order to listen to my sharing. So I'd like you to stop and pause and count to 7 real quickly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I'd like you to reflect on how many times in the last 7 days has someone shown gratitude to you? What did that feel like? What did it make you feel like? And just what did it do for you from an energy standpoint? Then I want you to count to 7 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And think about how many people in the last 7 days have you shown gratitude? And how did they feel? And what did it do for them? As we all know, showing gratitude is incredibly important. One more count to 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. When you reflect on the people that you've provided gratitude to in the last 7 days, have those individuals been more like you or very different than you? What I'm hoping is that we think about that question a lot, because I believe that we can't show enough gratitude in this day and age to enough people. Myself and Dr. Janet Reed have been doing work on diversity, equity, and inclusion now for some 36 plus years. It is a passion. It is because we believe that people are the most valuable asset of any organization, that you really make the difference. And we believe that the uniqueness of each of us is something to be celebrated and to be valued. We also believe that because we're human, sometimes we don't show this appreciation and gratitude to everyone. And oftentimes we tend to show more gratitude to people who are like us versus those who are different. And the challenge I am asking you to consider is how can we show more gratitude to many different types of people? So what I'd like to do is cover 6 basic topics, which you can see here. Everything from reinforcing the importance of gratitude, which I know you'll hear a lot about, to really understanding the impact that bias may have on gratitude, thinking about ways you can provide gratitude, knowing more about a person's way of preferred thinking, a way to think about how do you get to know people who are different and how that impacts the gratitude process. And this also concept and construct of respectful empathy, which I believe can unite and ignite gratitude amongst us all. And lastly, connected with some of the recent research that we've done. Again, why do I think this conversation is so timely? All types of information right now is showing that right now, this remote world we're living in has done many different things, certainly been very reflective, tough, and at sometimes constructive for thought. But it has really eroded trust amongst many of us. That happened as a result of multiple pandemics that we're under, from not only the physical, but the social, the psychological, the unrest that we currently have in our country and around the world. And all of these things lead to eroding trust. Unfortunately, all these things also increase the impact and opportunity for more bias. So that's why I believe showing gratitude to people who are different than you is so very important and so very timely. But I'm not the first to think about that. If you think about President John F. Kennedy, he said it best. We must find time to stop and thank people who make a difference in our lives. And if I could kindly modify that, I would say to thank people who are also different in our lives. Both of those, I think, can be true at the same time. But President Kennedy also shares something very important that I want to continue to reinforce, and that is we must take time to stop. You'll hear me use the word pause, the power of the pause. And there are reasons that we talk about that as being important from a gratitude standpoint. Now, as you all know, gratitude is this quality of being thankful and showing appreciation. And and I think it begins with us having gratitude inside for a variety of different things, even amongst difficult circumstances. But it is also our ability to show that gratitude to people outside of ourselves. And there is energy in that happening. So especially in the work with the customers, with the patients that we serve, all of those opportunities to show just a little gratitude can make a big difference in someone's day, in someone's week, and quite frankly, in someone's life. The challenge, I believe, is that because we're human, we're biased, and because we are biased, we might not show gratitude to everyone equally. In fact, I believe that there are often times that we might provide more gratitude to those who are more like us than those who are different. And so the challenge is knowing how powerful and positive gratitude is. How do we make sure that we're being inclusive when we provide gratitude for all? As I said before, we're all biased. One of the things of doing this work now for some 36 plus years is I recognize that one, I'm human, and two, I am biased, even though this is the work that I do each and every day. But it's when I understand my biases, surface my biases, and I can deal with them. And that's what I would challenge each of us to consider doing. Because once you do that, then you are in control versus the biases being in control. And I'm reminded of a story that happened to me while I was traveling to Cincinnati, which is where I'm from, after watching a football game that my youngest son, played in. And my wife and I had a routine. And that routine was every Sunday morning after his games, wherever they would be, we would fly back home to Cincinnati. In this particular case, it was right after the event in Charlottesville, where there's a lot of social unrest that was going on. And I was keenly aware that those events were taking place. I also saw individuals deplaying from the Charlottesville terminal. And so in my mind, as I'm looking there, sitting by myself early in the morning, I see some individuals get off the plane who had biker gear on. And I immediately thought, I wonder if they were part of the Charlottesville incident, and I wonder how they are. In fact, I started to have my biases play out in my mind. Well, fast forward a few minutes later, we board the plane. Some of those individuals that happened to have come from the Charlottesville flight were also on the plane. And about 20 minutes into the flight, what happens? Well, what you don't want to hear is we have a medical emergency. And so, is there anyone with medical experience? All of a sudden, there was a African-American man who was 2 seats in front of me. And what looked like to me, he had stopped breathing, stopped moving. The next thing I know, there were 5 white women who jumped up and were surrounding him. And literally, I know this to be true, they brought him back to life. The plane turns around, we go back. He is now breathing, he's now conscious. And guess what? Several of the folks that were saving his life happened to be the quote, biker people from Charlottesville. Wow, my biases were totally wrong. Several happened to be surgical nurses, and they really saved his life. After that event, and I captured my biases, I had a chance to stop and talk to the lady who really took the lead in that process. And I found out that her name was Michelle. And I got to tell you, I told Michelle, I want to thank you for what you did. You saved a life. I saw it. And I just want you to know how much I appreciate it, even though I don't know this gentleman. She looked at me, she smiled. She says, hey, that's what I do. No big deal. It's just what I do for people. And at that time, I asked her, Michelle, can I give you a hug? Because I just really want you to know how much I appreciate it. We hugged, and it just felt good. I had a chance to show her bias. I had a chance to show her gratitude. I also had a chance to work through my biases. Folks, if you're human, you're biased, and it's something that we all need to recognize. That's the reason for the power of the pause. Because if we don't pause, what often happens is that our what I like to call our primitive brain, our old school brain, our brain that talks about or operates under fight or flight takes over. If we pause for 7 seconds, we allow our thinking to move to our more current, future, rational part of our brain. And that's where we usually make the better decisions around people who are different. So the power of the 7-second pause is very important when it comes to gratitude, especially because gratitude is an intentional act. As I said before, in 7 seconds, we think we know everything about somebody. In 7 seconds, we think that we know their education level, their sexual identification, levels of success, etc., political background. And oh, by the way, if I didn't mention it, we all have judgments on each of those. So our biases are already in play. So if we just go on our primitive brain, we operate from that level versus going to our rational brain. In 7 seconds, we make 11 impressions. Imagine this. These are patients you're getting ready to serve. These are customers you're getting ready to serve. Imagine you're getting ready to get on an elevator and all 7 of these individuals are on the elevator. What's your 7-second impression? Really, what's your 7-second impression? However, if in fact the individuals had looked like this, what are your 7-second impressions? See, folks, in 7 seconds, we make all kinds of impressions. And in 7 seconds, unless we pause, we start to act. And often when we act, it's not as inclusive. And that impacts who we give gratitude to and how we show gratitude. In fact of the matter is we likely will show gratitude different or not at all if, in fact, we are not comfortable with the other individuals. That's why it's so important to pause. Again, the human part of us, if you're human, you're biased, is that in less than 7 seconds, in milliseconds, we make observations, leads to interpretation. It frames our mindset. And our mindset then drives our behaviors. There's nothing you can do about steps 1, 2, and 3. It's really almost like automatic pilot. However, we do control the 4th stage, which is our behavior. The way we can do that is to pause. And that's why, because gratitude is an intentional behavior, we have to give room for it to happen. I also believe that gratitude can disrupt the biases that we have in our society, from conformity bias to safety bias to even affinity biases and other types of cognitive biases. If we pause, gratitude can disrupt bias because it helps us to feel better. It acknowledges the best in us. It makes us feel better. It actually changes our biology and the chemicals in our body. So gratitude is so powerful. Why don't we share it with so many more? So as we think about gratitude and its ability to disrupt bias and really to create a better environment, there are three areas that I want to focus on. Focusing on cognitive diversity, focusing on connected understanding, and focusing on respectful empathy. So let's first start talking about the impact of showing gratitude for people who think different. No matter what shape, size, where people come from, nationality, gender identification, you name it, guess what? We all have a cognitive way we prefer to think. It's the human in us. It's the wiring in us. And there's no good or bad. There's different. However, how we hear something can make a big difference to us. So imagine we have the ability to show gratitude across the different ways people think. And I'm sure you know about the left brain and the right brain. And this is a metaphor to think about the fact that some of us are more cerebral and analytical, and that would be the upper left. Some of us prefer to think in the more action-oriented lower left, which is green. Some of us are much more relational and kinesthetic, that will be in the lower, which is red. And some of us are much more big picture, which is the upper right or yellow. So imagine that you share gratitude with people who have different types of thinking. The better you know how they prefer to think, the better they'll be able to receive your gratitude. And so I'd like you to pause here for 7 seconds, take a look at this model, and just reflect on, if you only could choose one, which one is your preferential way of thinking? Now, before you go too far, just know this: we all do all four. There are no rights and wrongs, but all the research and data shows that most of us are most dominant in one or two in terms of preference. Now, this is preference and not competence, and it's based on the Herman Brain Dominance Instrument Model, which I've had the great pleasure of being certified in for the last 25 years. So again, just reflect for a moment. Think about how you prefer to have gratitude if you are a more blue, analytical, A quadrant person. Or how would you prefer to have gratitude given to you if you're a more green or process-oriented person? Or let's say, for example, if you are in the C quadrant, in the red, and you're more interpersonal, how would you like to receive gratitude? And if you're much more yellow or big picture, and in the D quadrant, how would you prefer to have gratitude? Not only how would you prefer it, but how would you deliver it? Folks, how we deliver the message really makes a difference, in particular to the person whom the message is targeted to. So again, knowing our own and being able to differentiate the way that we show gratitude becomes very, very important. There's no good or bad, no right or wrong, but we do have a preference of how we think and prefer. Gratitude leads to building trust. And you recall on the earlier slide, what we talked about is the whole fact that we have lost trust, and trust has been eroded. So imagine that we can use gratitude with different people in the ways that they prefer in order to gain trust with folks who are showing gratitude in the blue quadrant, being more clear. For those who are more process oriented in the B quadrant, just really being more thoughtful and practical. We're showing gratitude to those who happen to be in the C quadrant, and we make it much more personal because that's how they can hear it best first. And or we are showing gratitude to people who have a preference in the D quadrant, and we really are enabling them to feel good about their individuality. It makes a difference, one, to show gratitude. It also makes a difference on how we show gratitude based on how people think. And this cognitive diversity is one that is often overlooked because we can't see it, but it does drive our behaviors significantly. I've also provided some additional articles that will be in the handout package. I would encourage you to continue to read about these subjects if, in fact, it is of interest to you. Now I'd like to shift to this whole idea about getting to know people at a deeper level and having connected understanding with them. Knowing this enables you to be better able to provide gratitude to people who are different than you, especially knowing that our brains are biased. And so if we just stop at what we think we can see, we might miss many opportunities to motivate, to encourage, to build connections with people who are different and really not leverage the power of gratitude. What we know is that we can really have impact on the heart and on the enthusiasm and on the well-being of everyone if we show gratitude. So why don't we show more gratitude to people, especially to those who are different than ourselves? If we stop at what we think we can see, we often miss the beauty behind the curtain. Don't let that first 7 seconds block what's behind the curtain. Don't let that first 7 seconds stop the fact that we are so diverse by a lot of different dimensions as human beings, from the way we think and process information in the middle to the internal dimensions, which are the ones that we can often see or think we can see, to the external dimensions and organizational dimensions. So many different opportunities to show gratitude in a variety of different ways. This model is based on Gardner, Schwartz, and Rowe, and it's one of the seminal models that talks about the wholeness and completeness of each of us from a diversity standpoint. So imagine right now you're looking at me, and imagine I am talking to you. That's actually happening, right? If I was able to know more about you, your race, your ethnicity, your background, some of the important events in your life, your marital status, parental status, if I knew more about your habits and recreational status, and maybe even your belief systems, if we have a connection and I know what your job is and your role and the work you do, I have a greater ability to appreciate you. I then have a greater opportunity to show you gratitude in an authentic way in many, many different ways. Imagine that. We have to get behind the curtain, because even though you see me right now and you might see in the background that I have some artifacts on Muhammad Ali, who happens to be one of my personal role models that I reflect on because of his transition and what I think he had in terms of impact. And by the way, my family's from Kentucky as well. You might not know that, but if any of you are from Kentucky, I just want to say and give you a special shout out because we often connect at many different levels. I often wear my Cincinnati Reds hat when I'm traveling and when I'm working. I like to represent the city that I'm from, but I also know that having a hat on, people have a different thought sometimes about me initially. What are they thinking? And I would love my Converse Chuck Taylor shoes. You will never see me without them. But most importantly are the lived experiences that make up who I am. I'm just sharing this because if you know more about the people you are giving gratitude to, you can do it in a more authentic way. You will see in the left, like many of us with the COVID situation, family is so important to me. I'm a military brat. When people say, where are you from? I say 2 years and out, and that's actually me and my father in a uniform that he actually made for me. I am recently a pop with 2 grandsons actually born during the COVID pandemic. So while there are so many negative things that have happened, some of the greatest blessings for me have actually occurred during this period of time. I am the eldest of two sons. Traveled around. When people say, where are you from? I say, I don't know, 2 years and out. Have a very diverse and eclectic family. Oftentimes, there are more different languages other than English spoken in my home than English. And I don't, I'm not a hunter, but I love to do sporting clays. So this is me and one of my friends, Gary, when we're shooting sporting clays. Don't worry, I don't hit the sporting clays, and I never hunt live animals. Long story short, folks, when you get to know people beyond what you think you can see, you're better able to show them gratitude that matters. And that gratitude lifts them up. It motivates them. It gets them to a different level. So the question that I have is, as you're thinking about the last time you showed gratitude or the last time gratitude was shown to you, did it happen from people who were different than you, who might think different, have a different appearance, a different sexual orientation, a different set of skills, a different set of physical abilities? Gratitude is such a powerful way to support each other. We need to share it more with all of us. Gratitude can't happen, in my humble opinion, without respectful empathy, and not sympathy, but empathy. It's this whole idea about the ability to really imagine that it's not that someone has a different set of shoes, it's that you can actually put their shoes on, but actually that your feet hurt too. In other words, you really experience it through their eyes, but you're respectful, not thinking about it in a way of a sympathy. So empathy and gratitude are absolutely connected. And so the better we are at being empathetic, the better we are at showing real gratitude that matters. This information was again reinforced by some research from Dr. Stephen Spencer recently as a result of some of the work Jan and I have been working on. And he really talked about this whole idea around respectful empathy versus paternalistic empathy or concern. Again, it's this whole way where we appreciate and we see people as our equal, and we value their lived experiences. In order to do that, we have to be very good listeners. These are different stages of listening. Stephen Covey. I happen to be very good at stages 1, 2, and 3. I can ignore incredibly well, pretend listen. I'm expert at it, and selective listening. The ones I have to work on most are attentive and empathetic. And this is the one that really makes a difference. Lastly, these are things that we can do to really influence the impact of gratitude. Again, I am challenging each of us to show more gratitude in general and to really stretch to show more gratitude to people who are unlike ourselves, the people that we work with, the different jobs and occupations, the people we come in contact with, the neighbor in our community, the people that we have the great privilege and pleasure of serving, our customers and our patients. Showing more gratitude makes a huge difference in our world and in the lives of the people that we're speaking to. And oh, by the way, I don't know about you, but it feels good for me too. So as I think about this, some of the most recent work that Dr. Janet Reed and I have done is based on this idea of what we call intrinsic inclusion, which is that there are some people, despite of our humanness and bias, are more naturally inclusive than others. And there are certain characteristics that they show based on some research by Drs. DC and Ryan. In other words, if we can relate to people and feel connected with them, if we can feel comfortable and competent about making those connections, and if we do it from the inside out with autonomy, not told, it truly makes a difference. And what we think is that it is important that we show those behaviors. We're encouraging more people to be more intrinsically and naturally inclusive. And one of the things we know is that those individuals do 4 things that actually disrupt bias. They are really good at creating shared trust, practicing respectful empathy, having connected understanding, and they create significant emotional relationships with people like themselves. We call these true bias disruptors because not only do they disrupt bias, they increase the opportunity to show much more gratitude, but they also, if we do it time and time again, give us an opportunity to create new neural pathways that don't stop bias, but give us alternative routes in order to be more inclusive. And we think that would be powerful for all. Different characteristics that these folks who are intrinsically inclusive are, and I'm sure you are one of them. They seek people out who are unlike themselves. We need to show more gratitude to people who are unlike themselves. They have a natural curiosity of understanding others much more deeply. That's a place for gratitude. They have less unjustified fear. When's the last time we talked to someone who was different and told them how much we appreciated what they've done? When they make mistakes, they learn from them and they teach others, and they are champions for diversity and inclusion. A lot of different behaviors they exhibit and a lot of different positive ways that they are actually viewed. So as we come to a close, I'd like you to take another 7 seconds because I know we've shared a lot in this short amount of time. I believe that we're all gems, we're all diamonds, some a little more rough than others, but all sparkle in a variety of different ways. And I'm hopeful as you reflect on this presentation that you really do think about when is the last time you provided gratitude in general? When is the last time you provided gratitude to someone who is different than yourself? What are the things that you can do to try to create a more inclusive environment? And how can you leverage gratitude to create that better world that we're all in and we all need today? I want to just thank you so much for taking the time and energy to choose to listen to this particular seminar. I know it's a phenomenal session. You've got so many choices. I have also provided some additional information for those who are interested to continue your journey, particularly as it relates to showing more gratitude to people who might be different than yourself. I thank you, I appreciate you, and I trust that you, your family, your friends, and colleagues are safe, healthy, and in great spirits. Again, Vince Brown.